didn't really work. All right, good morning. It's great to be here today in New Bedford as part of the Baker-Polito administration's Climate Week this week in Massachusetts, and we are canvassing the state to talk about all of the great work that is being done in our communities on various parts of our climate and clean energy plan and our work on resiliency. So far this week we've announced the first in the nation effort to establish a commission on clean heat, awarded grants for municipal clean energy projects through our Green Communities program, awarded over $10 million for land acquisition and park acquisition projects, and we have much more to come today and the rest of this week. I think we can't really talk about climate change here in Massachusetts without talking about this key clean resource for us, offshore wind, and that's why we're here in New Bedford this morning. Offshore wind is really the anchor resource of our entire clean energy and climate strategy, and the best opportunity the state has to generate clean energy right here off our shores. And while we're meeting our net zero emission goals, we're also creating economic development and jobs and a new workforce that is built with equity and diversity in it. But this new industry doesn't just offer us this tool, as I mentioned, for climate change. It is really about being able to invest in our ports, invest in our coastal infrastructure, and in these communities. In addition to cost-effective clean power, our 2 offshore wind procurements have brought over $100 million in economic development commitments to the Commonwealth and will be built right here in New Bedford at this Marine Commerce Terminal, where Massachusetts workers will pioneer the first in the nation Vineyard wind project, the first utility-scale offshore wind project off our coast, with Mayflower Wind to follow very shortly thereafter. And we're just a few, construction may have already started, Rachel. Vineyard Wind they hit financial close last week and are beginning onshore construction and moving to offshore construction next, and I'm sure you'll hear more about that. But one of the key pieces that allowed us to move forward with this industry was legislation in 2016, bipartisan legislation signed by Governor Baker that authorized clean energy procurements, the investments that had gone into this port, and then all of the work Massachusetts has done to build this workshop and to build this workforce, and many of those partners are here today. And I think that's really a testament to the idea that on any of these climate problems, you go much further if you go together. So I am going to turn it over to Governor Baker, and we will talk a lot more about offshore wind, workforce, and ports going forward.
Thank you, Secretary, and thank you for joining us today. And I want to thank the folks from the legislative delegation as well for being here, because that work that they put in on that 2016 legislation is a big part of why we're here. What do you think? Is this a pretty good place for wind, yes or no? I think from our point of view, this is one step in what has been a long journey that we believe will continue to move forward with increasing momentum going forward. I've talked to Secretary Theoharides and Lieutenant Governor and many others about the fact that we passed that legislation over 5 years ago. And, it's hard to be first. I think in some respects, in this particular instance, Massachusetts was the first state to pass a pretty comprehensive piece of legislation on this. We were the first state to put a bid out on the waters off the Atlantic, and we were the first state to get a really great price on a deep water bid proposal. And that created sort of a domino effect with a whole bunch of other states immediately following suit. And at this point in time, there are many gigabytes of offshore wind that are somewhere in the federal approval pipeline at this point, which is great. It's great for the environment, it's great for the economy, and it's great for the country. And but the problem being first is everybody looks at the federal level at us as the precedential decision maker, and there are many issues associated with getting from the idea to actually implementing it. And I do believe at this point We've put many of those behind us, and I expect and anticipate the process from this point going forward will move a lot more quickly, which is going to be a really good thing. And that's a big part of why it's important for us to make sure we take full advantage of that now that we've made significant investments in the port that I believe are unparalleled compared to, you can't find the work that's been done here anywhere else on the East Coast yet, and make sure that we have the workforce that's necessary to actually make sure what happens onshore and offshore benefits the people of the Commonwealth and delivers on many of the economic objectives that come along with the environmental ones. And that's why it's great to have the folks from Bristol and Mass Maritime here with us today, two of what I expect will be a number of partners that we'll work with to make sure that the workforce is there and that there are people who are qualified to take the jobs that this will create. I will say this, I think the opportunity here is profound. We're talking over time what could be hundreds of thousands, millions of households here in the Commonwealth that would be powered by the power that's generated by these projects off these shores, and do so in a way that will replace what would have been literally astonishing amounts of greenhouse gas emissions. And for us, as I said, it's been a long 5 years, but I do believe that the process of being first almost required that it would be long for us. And I do think at this point you're going to start to see a significant amount of momentum pick up as the feds get comfortable with this, as others get comfortable with this, as the bids continue to move through the process, and as people actually get into the business of constructing and delivering on this. So we're very excited about where we are. We're really excited about the future, and mostly we're thrilled that the project that we worked on back with the legislature in 2016 has turned into such a game changer with respect to wind as a viable environmental and economically competitive alternative off the coast of the United States of America. It's a pretty big deal, and I fully expect that it will be a very big deal over the course of the next 5 to 10 years. And with that, I will turn it back to the Secretary.
Thank you, Governor, and another champion of our climate efforts at the state level and really leading this clean energy push is our Lieutenant Governor, Karyn Polito.
Good morning on this windy day. Happy to be with all of you, and very happy to be with our colleagues in state government. We see Representative Markey, Representative Cabral, and Schmidt and Hendrix here. I also want to thank our academic partners in Admiral McDonald from Mass Maritime, President Douglas from Bristol Community College. I see John Quinn from UMass Dartmouth. It's a pleasure to be with all of you. I want to talk just briefly. I know the governor speaks about the investments in the port, in the places along our coastline to service offshore wind, and the project it brings incredible opportunities to our Commonwealth's innovation economy. But the key for Massachusetts and our success really hinges on our ability to invest in people. Invest in people in the way that will help us create the talent and the skills and abilities to service this incredible industry. An industry that spans across various phases, including manufacture and assembly for it, the construction and installation of it, the operations and maintenance and support services for many, many years to come. And as the governor says, when you start something new here, it does take a collaborative effort in order to do this right. And we can't just think that we're going to call up people with the right skills and be ready to service it. We need to really invest in the programs needed with our academic partners to make sure that the industry-specific credentials that are required have programs that are designed to graduate students and attract people that are in maybe other jobs that want to transition into this industry to be able to access the credential or the certificate program to be a part of it. We need people of all abilities. We need our trades and our metal workers and electricians. We need our engineers. We need meteorologists. We need vessel machinists. We need incredible people that will have the courage to go out into the deep sea and service a turbine up hundreds of feet. This is an incredible opportunity, and to think about the people of our Commonwealth that will be a part of it starting now and into the future is an incredible opportunity. To build out a diverse and qualified, quality, skilled workforce is something that I am very passionate about as the chair of the STEM Council, as well as the chair of the Seaport Economic Council. And I couldn't be happier for the South Coast region of our Commonwealth to really call the blue economy its own and to power up the workforce skills that are needed to service it for many years to come. Congratulations on this milestone, but know that we have a lot of work to do to get this right. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lieutenant Governor, and I should note, we have STEM Week coming up soon. I think we're going to be talking about offshore wind during that as well. Next, I would like to introduce Jennifer Deloisio, who is our new CEO of the Massachusetts Clean Energy Center, stepping in for Steve Pike. And I would just note that our Clean Energy Center has done so much to begin the work of building this workforce, and very much thanks to Bruce Carlisle, our offshore wind director, who's here, and Jennifer for all of their work on that.
Good morning, and thank you for being here today. A special thanks to our terminal management team, Greg Dolan and Jeannie Hood, who host us today. Thank you to the Lieutenant Governor Polito and Governor Baker and the Secretary for your remarks and for your support of offshore wind and workforce development in the Commonwealth. The Baker-Polito administration's policies and actions have paved the way for a nation-leading offshore wind industry in Massachusetts. I also want to acknowledge the legislative delegation, who have been important partners in MassCEC's offshore wind efforts, most recently lending their support for additional funding at MassCEC to increase our workforce development programs. The New Bedford Marine Commerce Terminal is the only existing facility purpose-built for offshore wind. This was an early investment that's paying off. In fact, behind us you can see those two ships that are here doing survey work for offshore wind developers at this time. It's appropriate that we're here during Climate Week. Offshore wind will be a critical, important part of the Commonwealth's energy future and reaching the goal of net zero emissions by 2050. As we work to build this offshore wind industry, we will need a well-trained and diverse workforce. The Commonwealth is working to identify and implement workforce development strategies and programs to ensure that Massachusetts workers have the skills, training, and certifications necessary to participate in the offshore wind industry. I'm thrilled to be here today for the release of a new offshore wind workforce report. Building on a 2018 workforce needs assessment, MassCEC worked with BW Research Partnership to better understand the specific offshore wind job needs and assess the local labor supply, identifying areas of strengths and areas where more work is needed, including a focus on priority communities to ensure that we have equity and diversity front of mind as we build this new workforce. This report also looked at the efforts underway in other Northeast states on offshore wind workforce programs and highlights that Massachusetts is leading the way with 7 out of the 12 offshore wind specific training programs right here in the Commonwealth. This research clearly demonstrates the scale and potential of offshore wind job creation and reinforces that while Massachusetts has a highly skilled and capable workforce, a certain degree of upskilling, retraining, and additional support will be needed for Massachusetts workers to take advantage of these new opportunities. This work is informing MassCEC's workforce strategy as we look to build and grow programs and jobs that are offered to all of our workers, focusing on reducing barriers and increasing access to opportunities for training and education in offshore wind. Together with Vineyard Wind and Mayflower Wind, MassCEC has invested more than $4 million in offshore wind academic and training programs at institutions like Mass Maritime Academy and Bristol Community College's National Offshore Wind Institute. Facilities like these will be cornerstones as Massachusetts continues to lead the nation in workforce training. I want to acknowledge BW Research Partnership and our offshore wind team at MassCEC for their hard work on this report. MassCEC's workforce efforts are not a short-term investment, just as climate change is not a short-term problem. We are investing in cleaner, healthier lives and economic opportunities for the people of the Commonwealth. Thank you.
All right, I would like to turn now to two of our institutions who are really doing yeoman's work in terms of training this next generation of workforce, and we'll start with Laura Douglas, who's the president of Bristol Community College, and whose work is focused on bringing women and people of color into this new workforce. Thank you, Laura.
Hello and good afternoon. I'm Laura Douglas, president of Bristol Community College, and I would like to thank Governor Baker, Lieutenant Governor Polito, Secretary Theoharides, Jennifer Deloisio, Michael Brown, Rachel Pachter, and the legislative delegation for your unwavering support for Bristol Community College and the National Offshore Wind Institute that we like to call the NOWI. The offshore wind sector is poised to create thousands and thousands of job opportunities across a wide range of industries, and it is critical to develop a local workforce and infrastructure to support this industry. The NOWI will provide the needed workforce development, focusing on required certifications, skills, and knowledge for jobs in the offshore wind sector. I know I share the vision, like the other speakers here today, to ensure that Massachusetts will be the epicenter of the offshore wind industry, and the NOWI will support this industry and its supply chain to grow here in the Commonwealth. The NOWI will provide the industry's required trainings such as health and safety, GWO, that's Global Wind Organization, training programs, customized trainings for the developers, and original equipment manufacturers or OEMs, professional development, and an entrepreneurial focus to provide opportunities for startups and small businesses. Another focus for the NOWI is supporting diversity, equity, and inclusion for the sector. The NOWI Speaker Series, Equity in Offshore Wind, in August showcased 5 women in offshore wind, from Mayflower Wind, Vineyard Wind, GE, Vestas, Siemens Gamesa, and their successful journeys into a male-dominated field, demonstrating to all of us that the opportunities in this industry is for women and for people of all backgrounds. Today, the NOWI is developing a communication campaign which will identify career and training opportunities into offshore wind. Bristol, with Old Bedford Village, Denison Memorial Community Center, Positive Acting Against Chemical Addiction, or PACA, and the New Bedford Girls and Boys Club will reach residents with a special focus on our underrepresented populations. This campaign, funded by Mass CEC, will produce materials that will be disseminated to the community-based organizations as well as schools throughout the region to illustrate just how they can access career opportunities and training in this field. Partnering with Mayflower Wind on this diversity, equity, and inclusion program and its workforce development programs, Bristol will ensure that our pathways are comprehensive, up-to-date, diverse, and focus on a wide variety of occupational opportunities. Massachusetts is the critical link to the sector's success, and its strength is in its strong partnerships, such as Bristol's collaboration with the Mass CEC and its support for the NOWI. Also here in southeastern Massachusetts, we have the very forward-thinking Connect for Wind partnership between Bristol Community College, UMass Dartmouth, Massachusetts Maritime Academy, Bridgewater State University, Massasoit Community College, and Cape Cod Community College that provides a network of public higher education institutions that work together to offer academic and workforce development programs to support this industry and the supply chain. Bristol also impacts the local workforce by offering its academic offshore wind program through early college and dual enrollment opportunities such as the ACE-MV project with Vineyard Wind and Vineyard Power at Martha's Vineyard High School. Last, but certainly not least, I want to thank and recognize the Bristol Community College Board of Trustees, led by Chair Joan Medeiros, if you'd raise your hand, and the Bristol Community College Foundation, led by President Tom Murray, if you would raise your hand, for their early vision of how our college could play a significant role in launching the offshore wind industry for the Commonwealth. As Governor Baker alluded, it's not easy being first. Their determination and unwavering support for Bristol's National Offshore Wind Institute is to be commended. It is through their backing of this effort that we are able to position the region for a competitive advantage in U.S. offshore wind. So thank you for coming today to celebrate Climate Week here in New Bedford. And we know that during Climate Week and beyond, we will all be championing Massachusetts in its leadership in renewable energy and in offshore wind. We so appreciate your support. Let's have a great future here in offshore wind.
Well, the wind is picking up. For another institution that has a significant first is our Mass Maritime Academy, as the first in the nation to have the global certification for its wind safety training program. And to talk more about this, I'll introduce Rear Admiral Francis McDonald.
Thank you very much, Secretary Theoharides, and it's just wonderful to be here. Massachusetts Maritime has long been known for producing mariners that serve merchant marine across the globe, and also for producing energy engineers that run the power plants throughout the Commonwealth and the nation. This opportunity is really the nexus of those two industries, and we're very, very fortunate to be a part of it. But I have to tell you, I am only able to stand here because of the folks behind me. And this is a moment here in New Bedford that we should all be very, very proud of at a time when partisan rancor seeks to even crush our democracy. It's this administration and this legislature going back to 2016 and continue to work on it moving forward that built these programs to produce the seed funding to make this all happen. So we're proud that we were able to cut the ribbon on the nation's first training center back in 2019. We're very, very proud to have folks like the iron workers and the pile drivers already on campus getting trained for this industry. And we are really proud of our role as a public university to reach into those folks that otherwise don't have these opportunities. And much like our partners, Bristol Community College, we have a commitment to change the face of this industry. And that has already been happening because of some of that seed money, including from some of the developers, including Mayflower and Vineyard Wind. Our middle school programs this summer included offshore wind. Participation was over 50% by young women, and our Gateway City programs are off and running. So I really stand here humbled and just in an opportunity to say thank you to everybody. And now because of this work, we have a force multiplier in front of us. And as President Douglas just said, next month we will expand the MOU that included 3 schools back in 2018 to include the 6 public institutions here in southeastern Mass and Cape Cod. And folks, you get the power of the community colleges and the role that they have played in workforce, and you have the power of the associate's degree, the 4-year degree. We are going to make social mobility happen here in this Commonwealth. I'm thrilled to be here, and again, my hat's off to the legislature and to Governor Baker, Lieutenant Governor Polito, Secretary Theoharides. Let's rock and roll. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Admiral. So, as the governor said, going first isn't always easy, and I'm not sure there's anyone who knows that any better than Rachel Pachter, who's here to talk about the Vineyard Wind project. Thank you, Rachel.
I don't know. I think it was a breeze. I don't know what everyone's talking about. Hi, I'm Rachel Pachter. I'm the Chief Development Officer at Vineyard Wind. And I think, it's a long string of thank yous, but we really We've been all working so hard, and I just think any moment we get to stop and appreciate the progress we've made, the work we have done, the goals we have ahead of us, I think is great. So I think, we were here 2 months ago now to announce our project labor agreement. That was an amazing event. So this facility obviously is both symbolic and useful. So we're extremely excited about that. But obviously Governor Baker and his team, Lieutenant Governor and the Secretary, have been unwavering in their support of this project. And when they picked us in 2018, which feels right now like a lifetime ago, we took a long time to kind of absorb that news. But they put their faith in us, and we hope we've made you guys proud. We have all worked together, and I think what people really understand about this being first, and I think the Secretary said it, is the critical nature of the partnerships in order to be successful, because it really just doesn't happen without all of us. And even the other developers, even working with Mayflower, everybody working together to make sure it's successful, because our goals are bigger than that, right? Our goals are this developed workforce and climate change and all of that. So just an absolute thank you. We've had longstanding, I would say both Bristol and the Mass Maritime Academy have been unwavering in their commitment, and seeing the vision of the benefits of offshore wind takes a lot of vision, because I think it's so big that people can't really, always imagine how many jobs we can create, how many ports we will use, how many, if you build it, it will be used. These are massive projects. They produce a lot of energy, and that's why we're doing it. But there really is such huge opportunity. I know there's more investment coming in ports, and we're really thrilled to see about that. And we just want to continue to work with everyone best we can to be partners in the community, to help grow a workforce, to help grow a diverse workforce. And we're just here to support that, and I just want to thank everyone here, especially the legislature, without which that legislation, many of us today in this event wouldn't have jobs. So even just that's the beginning of the job creation, and beyond. Thank you all very much.
Our next 800 megawatts of offshore wind are coming to us from Mayflower Wind project, and here to talk a little bit more about that project and the opportunities ahead for the Commonwealth is Michael Brown, the CEO of Mayflower Wind.
Good afternoon. I suppose it's not so easy to come second. I mean, everybody talks about it being difficult to be first, but following second after Vineyard Wind and following after Rachel obviously puts a bit of pressure on, so we're looking to do our absolute best to follow and to make everybody in Massachusetts proud. I suppose it was just a couple of weeks ago that we had the IDA bore down on Massachusetts, and we in our vessels that were here that benefited from the hurricane barrier. It really brings home in this climate week what climate change is doing to everything round about here. And we'd like to thank the leadership of the Baker-Polito administration as part of really showing a way to make a change in climate change and to really lead a way forward that allows us to make the appropriate changes and to start to address the changes that we are seeing every day in our climate. Although we are here for the wind, so I'm not gonna worry too much about that. I hope our boys out there today. One key way that Massachusetts has been acting and really making the absolute difference for climate change is by awarding contracts to ourselves and to Vineyard Wind in order to allow us to make the investments and then to build these wind farms. And we're proud to make strong commitments to Massachusetts under the contracts that we have. We are looking at workforce development and ports and the upgrades that we can make in order to make a change to the communities, and in particular the communities in the South Coast. The efforts here today, where we're standing at New Bedford Port, is an important stepping stone. It's an important path forward. Soon, the Vineyard Wind turbines are going to be behind us, and hopefully soon after that, the Mayflower turbines will be coming. The investments that we're here to announce today is another step forward to allowing the appropriate amount of workforce and development that we need in order to make sure that we can have the best wind farm and the best wind farm for Massachusetts, and that's something that we're absolutely committed to. In particular, Mayflower and the state are focused on making real key investments in New Bedford and Fall River and across the entire South Coast. We heard about Mayflower is making significant investments in the NOWI, subject to our contracts, and how we intend to do things. And we hope that that can really start to ignite this industry and drive it forward in a way that we can all be proud of. I think this is an amazing industry. I think it's one that I'm extremely proud to have come over here. You may notice that my accent is not local. I do my best. I was behind home plate watching the Red Sox beat the Mets last night, so I have gone local enough to do that. But
who are you rooting for?
the Red Sox. Yeah, I promise. Anyway, I'll leave you to it, but thank you all very much for inviting us. It's a pleasure to be here. We look forward to continuing our investment as Mayflower in New Bedford and the whole of the South Coast. Thank you all very much.
Our legislative colleagues have been true partners and leaders in this effort, and we are so thrilled to continue that work with them on the go forward as we look at what does updating the authorization look like, what are the changes that need to be made to keep this industry strong here in the Commonwealth. And so I will begin with Representative Markey.
It's over there. Chris?
I pulled you out of the... Thank you.
I'm coming out of the bullpen. You'll have no idea what that is, but that's okay. I just want to address one other thing that a couple people have spoken about, and the Real Admiral spoke of, is the ability of our government in Massachusetts to actually work together. The fact that we're actually mentioning it is troubling, but it's taken for granted. And I think it's taken for granted because of the efforts of the Lieutenant Governor and the Governor. I have said this before to anyone who asks. By far, we have the best governor in the country. He has been able to balance things like this, which are essential to our futures, and has passed that on to his administration, to his secretariats, to focus on renewable energies. And at the same time dealing with the COVID crisis in a way which I would say nothing less than spectacular. And the consistency, the maturity, the deliberation, the thoughtfulness for all of us has been unseen anywhere in the country. So I think we owe that, the ability to balance that crisis that we're dealing with for the last 19 months and keep moving forward with transportation improvements, with offshore wind, renewable energies, and all of that at the same time is unimaginable, and I think he deserves a great deal of credit. This project, this facility is essential. We will always be looking back at this, at least hopefully my kids will be looking back at this and saying, I remember when this was built. I will be looking back at it, hopefully at some point, and saying, I remember I used to drink beers over there when I was in hiding from the police. But this facility is quite an investment by the state for years, and it will have an effect on our kids' and it will be something that will, as I think Mayor Mitchell has mentioned, is like the Commonwealth. So I think it's incredibly important for us to appreciate the efforts of the administration, but more importantly is we need to focus on exactly what President Douglas talked about, is working towards that, changing the face of who works here, giving the opportunity to the people who are less fortunate, and making sure that those people have an investment, like I've had an investment in the city that has given me so much. So thank you so much for being here. Again, thank you again, the administration, for everything they've done. And these guys, Tony and Paul and Chris, have been incredible as well. So I want to thank them as well. But thank you, everyone.
Next up is Representative Cabral, who is a fierce advocate for his communities. Going out of order here.
Good afternoon and welcome to the 13th Bristol District, where all things happen. But I'm delighted to be here with the governor, the lieutenant governor, and the secretary, and obviously the partners in this project, Mayflower and Vineyard Wind. We usually call it in New Bedford VW, not for Volkswagen. But this is really transformative. We all know this. We have worked over the years since, not only since 2016, but before that, we had to fight to make sure that we secure the right legislation to move this industry forward and to make it happen here in Massachusetts, and in particular in the South Coast. That's been our aim, it's been our goal. I think the governor and the lieutenant governor has done a tremendous job in guiding, since the signing of the legislation, in guiding us forward, and that's important. That's how we make it happen. Yeah, being first is difficult, but I think with those kinds of efforts by the governor, the lieutenant governor, the secretary, and all our partners, I think we will be fine. And this is going to be transformative for all of us in New Bedford. And I must also mention the partners, labor partners too. And I see Frank Callahan here, a good friend, someone I've worked with many years ago and continue to work with him to make sure that we have the kinds of jobs that pay living wages, not just any job. The work from BCC and Mass Maritime and all the training that's going to go on, that those who work in this industry will look like those who live in this area. Thank you, Governor. Thank you, Lieutenant Governor, and to all our partners. Thanks.
Another key legislative partner, I'd like to introduce Representative Hendrix.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for being here. Just a few things. Chris Mark, if you're coming out of the bullpen, where the hell does that leave me? And so, you know, the legislature gets a lot of credit for passing that law in 2016. I wasn't part of that, but it really is great to be part of such an effort here in the southeastern Massachusetts. Just want to thank the governor and lieutenant governor and their administration for what they've done to prioritize this as an issue. I know there's a lot of moving pieces and a lot of bureaucracy that's involved with something like this. So for it to be made easier, that's involved with something like this. So for it to be made easier with your administration and to have have labor involved. You know, one of my best days in my early days of the legislature was right over here several months ago, signing that to be part of that signing for the labor agreement, and I think that's the whole game as far as I'm concerned. My previous life before politics and to this day to a degree is helping working folks from labor and helping injured workers. So prioritizing labor in this effort with offshore wind is paramount in my opinion. So thank you for all the partners. Thank you for being here. Thank you to NAWI. Thank you President Douglas and President McDonald for taking part in this, and thank you everyone.
And to bring us home today, I'd like to introduce Representative Schmidt, who cares deeply about climate change, natural and working lands, and farmland here on the South Coast. So thank you, Representative.
Thank you very much, Madam Secretary. And I will echo the ample thanks from my colleagues for the governor and the lieutenant governor on all of this. And I just want to take the opportunity to recognize a couple of other community partners, because we've heard so much about the partnerships here. I see Tony Sapienza representing the mayor's regeneration committee, and I see John Bullard, former mayor of New Bedford, who is chairing a pan-ocean group intended to encompass offshore wind, fishing, and all the facets that the ocean brings to us. We had an opportunity yesterday, the House of Representatives, to go out with the Speaker and visit the 5 offshore wind turbines that are currently off Block Island. And we recognize that these, I think, are very small compared to what Vineyard and Mayflower will be building. But it really brought home to us the jobs that are going to be needed to build and maintain facilities such as are about to go up. And make no mistake about it, those are dangerous jobs. That is not like working on land. And I think it's just so reassuring to know that we have this partnership of Mass Maritime, BCC, UMass Dartmouth, and the other community colleges in the area who are just going to make sure that these great, good-paying, long-term jobs are also safe jobs. So thank you very much.
All right, and to close us out, I just would note that as we go forward on this industry and continue to create the new jobs and deploy the procurements of clean energy, we are also very focused on continuing to upgrade our ports. And so the governor has a plan for that in his ARPA proposal, which would invest $100 million in reinvigorating these ports and partnering with cities and towns and the industry to really bring this industry onto our shores. So thank you all. I will turn it over for questions to the governor.
Questions? All right, Sharman, you've been asking the first question since the pandemic began, so go right ahead. Well, one of the reasons we made the decision to move forward with a vaccine mandate for executive branch employees was the amount of time that a lot of our workforce spends working with the public in a very face-to-face and physically present way. And we thought it was important to not only make sure that our folks were vaccinated to protect themselves and their families, but also that would be protection for the people that they deal with every day. And I fully expect that there will be some back and forth associated with all this, but we made sure when we put this together that we did it in such a way that it would meet the legal requirements associated with pursuing something like this. And I guess what I would say is we're looking forward to making sure that everybody who works on the executive branch side of things is vaccinated, and I'm sure we can figure out a way to get from here to there with pretty much everybody. Say again? There's a lot of research that's been done on the testing stuff, and it's a terrific surveillance tool in certain circumstances. I think the concern I have with it as an alternative to what we proposed is I really want people I want people who deal with the public. I want people who are face-to-face with public folks who work for the Commonwealth to be comfortable in knowing that those folks are vaccinated. And I think that in some respects is sort of our primary objective here. It's good I happen to believe it's good for the employees and their families and their neighbors and everybody else they come in contact with. But I also think it sends a really strong message to those who come in contact with them. And if you look at a lot of the work that's done by people in the executive branch, they are face-to-face if they're doing their jobs the way they're supposed to be done every single day with the public. And they are face-to-face with people they don't know, so I happen to think it's important for them to be vaccinated so that they can be safe, just in case they're dealing with people who may be asymptomatic and are actually transmitting COVID. And the other is, I think it's important for the people in the public to know that the folks they're dealing with on our side are also vaccinated and therefore safe.
Last question.
I'm not familiar with that particular initiative, but obviously there are ongoing conversations that are going on between all of the unions and our administration on the details. And that's appropriate and I think necessary. Well, as we stand here getting blown over, I think it's a perfect example of why it's so important to be here with respect to this initiative. First of all, New Bedford and Fall River have geographic proximity. I mean, in some respects, one of the most important things with respect to how you think about where you're going to put a lot of your onshore activity that supports your offshore activity has to do with proximity. The second is, you know, do you have a port that's capable of being deep enough and wide enough to bring a lot of the vehicles that need to come in and out? And the third is, do you have dry land that's got the infrastructure that's in place that can support the very heavy and very significant gear that we're talking about here? Through some of the investments that the Clean Energy Center made, through some of the historic investments that have been made here in the port for decades by both private and public participants, and just we dredged the harbor here recently. I think in many ways this is a perfect location, and I love the fact that it will be a huge opportunity for many of the educational institutions down here to work with these organizations and our partners to ensure that a lot of the work that gets presented here can be taken by the folks who, as Representative Cabral said, live and work here.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks again for coming. No, but thank you for asking. Thanks.